Welcome to the Wiki Wanderer, where I roam Wikipedia to find articles to read to you. Today's article is the Providence Civil Compact. The Providence Civil Compact, sometimes referred to as the Scott Petition, was a foundational agreement signed by 13 settlers of the town of Providence, now Providence, Rhode Island, in which they pledged obedience to the decisions of local government, but only in civil things. This early assertion of limited government authority is one of the first known declarations in colonial America to endorse the principle of separation of church and state, and it laid the groundwork for religious liberty in Rhode Island. Background and signatories. Roger Williams, a Puritan minister and theologian, was banished from the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1636 for his new and dangerous opinions, including the belief that civil magistrates had no authority over matters of conscience or religious practice. He objected to the colony's enforcement of religious uniformity, compulsory worship, and oaths of allegiance, and he defended the land rights of indigenous people. Williams fled to Narragansett territory and founded a settlement he called Providence, sometimes New Providence in the very early days. On March 24th, 1638, he obtained a deed from the Narragansett Sachems, Kanakis, and Miantomani, securing legal title to the land. Later that year, he distributed the land among 12 settlers in what became known as the Initial Deed. The 13 original proprietors were Stukely Westcott, William Arnold, Thomas James, Robert Coles, John Green, John Throckmorton, William Harris, William Carpenter, Thomas Olney, Francis Weston, Richard Waterman, Ezekiel Holyman, and Roger Williams as the grantor. This group of proprietors was entirely distinct from the 13 signers of the Providence Civil Compact, with no overlap between the two groups. While the proprietors represented the established heads of households who held founding shares in the settlement, the compact signers were newcomers and younger men seeking admission into the community. The compact signers included Richard Scott, William Reynolds, John Field, Chad Brown, John Warner, George Richard, Edward Cope, Thomas Engel, Thomas Harris, Francis Wickes, Benedict Arnold, Joshua Windsor, and William Wickenden. Notable family relationships existed between the groups. William Arnold was a proprietor, while his son Benedict Arnold signed the compact, and William Harris was a proprietor, while his brother Thomas Harris signed the compact, but no individual appeared on both lists, reflecting the complementary nature of the two groups in Providence's early governance structure. Creation and dating. The exact date of the Providence Civil Compact is unknown, as the manuscript itself bears no date. The traditional attribution of the August the 20th, 1637, arose from a later town record notation and does not reflect when the document was actually authored or signed. Historian Ian Watson argues for a revised chronology. The text was first drafted by Roger Williams in spring 1637, not the traditionally assumed August-September 1636. Watson challenges the early dating, which was based on references to Pequot War preparations in Williams's correspondence with Massachusetts Bay Deputy Governor John Winthrop. Instead, Watson contends the letter describing the draft was more likely sent in spring 1637, as it describes a more established settlement with a greater need for formal governance than would have existed just weeks after Providence's founding in 1636. The physical document, the final draft, was transcribed by Thomas James, a Cambridge-educated minister who served as Providence's town clerk, as conclusively demonstrated through handwriting analysis in 1963. Watson proposes that the first group of the 13 signatures was likely affixed in 1638, a full year after the traditional date. with additional names added through mid-1640 as new settlers arrived and sought admission to the community. Richard Scott, a Baptist who later became a Quaker and was married to Catherine Marbury Scott, sister of Anne Hutchinson, was likely the first person to sign the document. The document was sometimes nicknamed the Scott Petition in the early 20th century based on erroneous claims that Scott authored it. Content and significance. The text of the compact reads, "We whose names are hereunder desirous to inhabit in ye town of Providence do promise to subject ourselves in active or passive obedience to all such orders or agreements as shall be made for public good of or body in an orderly way by the major consent of the present inhabitants, maisters of families incorporated together into a town fellowship, and others whom they shall admit unto them only in civil things." The clause "only in civil things" was written on a separate line in the original manuscript, indicating its special emphasis. This limitation marked a radical departure from the prevailing colonial norms, which typically tied civil authority to religious orthodoxy. In contrast to the Mayflower Compact, 1620, which invoked God and religious purpose, the Providence Compact made no mention of religion and refrained from requiring oaths. Its emphasis on secular governance anticipated the principles later enshrined in the First Amendment in the United States Constitution. Legacy. The principle of limiting government authority to civil things became foundational in Rhode Island's legal and cultural identity. This compact set the precedent for the Providence Combination of 1640, in which nearly 40 residents formalized town governance while affirming the right to liberty of conscience. Neighboring colonies viewed the Providence experiment with suspicion. Religion scholar Theodore Dwight Bozeman wrote that the colony was seen as a banished colony, the outcast of New England, due to its religious heterodoxy and perceived lack of civil order. Nonetheless, the compact's principles influenced later developments in religious freedom and constitutional government. Historian Edwin S. Godstad called it a revolutionary in that it explicitly limited the power of government to civil matters only. Historian Sidney V. James described it as the first instance in America of a political covenant that limited civil authority by explicitly excluding from its reach matters of religious conscience. If you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below any other topics that you would like to know about.